Hey everyone, welcome back to the shop. I've done a lot on the 1981 Brat, and so I've compiled them all into one video to kind of give you a gist of what we've been doing here at BeardWerks Garage. So first thing we did was we put the engine on the engine stand, cleaned it up, and changed out gaskets. We looked at the timing belt, we replaced that. That was just kind of for insurance. We were already in there, and it's really easy to do out of the car. If you're a Subaru person, you know doing it in the car is not fun, especially in the 1981 Brat. I'm sure it would be very hard. We did that. We did new spark plugs. We went ahead and installed the fuel rails. We removed the TGVs and a TGV delete kit on the tumbler valves, and so those have been removed. We did new intake gaskets and kind of buttoned it all back up. The Subaru Legacy GT engine, which this is out of, it's a 2010 JDM Legacy GT engine, that's a mouthful, is basically an EJ255 turbo, but the turbo is up front, very similar to the modern WRXs. And I chose that engine, one, because they're pretty reasonable. When you look at them, I was able to get an engine shipped to the house for about $1,800. And if you looked at the price of WRX engines or STI engines, easily could be double than that. It's not a very desirable engine. It was only made for a couple of years, but essentially it's very similar. I mean, I haven't really found too many differences between the two when looking up parts. But the main reason I picked it was because the turbo, being up front, allowed us to clear the front Brat subframe. So I'll put an overlay video of that showing where you can see how it fits very nicely up front. Now it does hang a little low. Some of you will notice that. No one's commented that yet. It does hang a little low. I have some ideas for that later, but I do think it's cool. It's not any lower than the differential on a Subaru WRX, so I think we'll be fine there as far as clearance, but we will have to keep that in mind when we're out and about driving around.
We are turning it up. This machine is coming alive.
The engine back in the Brat, hopefully for the last time, and we'll get the transmission and everything buttoned up. pass through down there. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys. I got everything buttoned up. I got the steering shaft back in, pedal box, all that master cylinder, brake booster, and this is that 3D printed clutch master cylinder that I printed up. I'm thinking you could put it like right here, which I know probably for reference is not helping you guys since everything's black, but it's going to fit kind of like right in there, right behind this kind of, I'll call it steering shaft support, all that. And that'll fit back in there, and then we can run it to the clutch pedal, and then we'll just have a custom line made to go down to the WRX transmission. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna order one of these, order the kit, and it'll be a remote reservoir, so we'll have to figure out where we want to put the reservoir. The good thing about the BRAT, there's not a lot going on behind the dash, so basically we're just gonna have the ECU, the wiring for all the stuff up front, and then the dash component, because we're using Haltech dash. So a lot of these the original wires are just, they're not going to exist, and should make everything easy. And the vintage air is going to live underneath the dash over here, so we're just going to have the wires coming up for the controls. So this is going to leave us a lot of, or give us a lot of room here to make this happen. I'm happy about that, so I'll go ahead and get this ordered. I also ordered a new steering shaft bushing. I guess that's what you call it, steering coupler disc. And actually this is from Bug Pack Products. It's a Volkswagen steering column coupler, and just based on research, everything seems to line up here to the BRAT. This fits Beetles, Gias, Type 3s. Not sure what that means. I'm not a Volkswagen guy, but it's pretty cool to actually find some things that can cross over from the Volkswagen world. And yeah, everything's going to match up really nice here. So I know we're going to have to extend this shaft a little bit, but I want to go ahead and see what that looks like before we get into it. Also, one thing I haven't showed you guys on the back is the stainless steel brake lines came off of a similar Volkswagen, but it was like the bus, and it had the exact thread pitch that we needed. They were only like an inch longer, but actually that helped us out. So I'll show you that in the future, but I just wanted to kind of mention that. So this goes on here, then we have the little coupler, or kind of like a U-joint, I don't know what you want to call that, steering joint that goes down to the steering column, and then this goes down to the steering rack. Okay, I don't have everything tightened up yet, but this is the factory BRAT steering knuckle, that's what you want to call that. And we've got plenty of threads, it looks like, on each side, and we're reaching that down there. The reason I was worried that this would be too short is we did lower the cross member down about an inch to make clearance for the engine and to get our drive shaft angle correct. And so I was a little worried about that, but looks like there's enough play inside of this knuckle to get us where we want. And also the shaft slides out a little bit more, and so I was able to slide that forward. One thing I could do is I could drill all the way through, and we could put some safety pins as well as the nuts that come with it. So anyways, it's nice to see that in there now, so hopefully that angle is not too aggressive for it. There's the brake booster and master cylinder, so we're moving along. Alright guys, so we're going to do something I have never done before, which apparently rebuilding a car like this, there's a lot of things I've never done before, but always eager to learn, and I think that's the fun part of all this. So the BRAT originally, this is the front braking system, if you will. These two lines here came from the master cylinder. They then went into this distribution block, and left and right went to the left and right calipers, and then these two went to the rear, and this would stick up on the firewall like this. Just from researching things, it seems like we could update the system a little bit more by running a T. And so basically the front port, if you will, on the master cylinder will run to this T, and then we'll split off from this T and go to the left and right calipers. And then on the rear, we'll do the same thing off the second port of the master cylinder. However, in line, we're gonna have a proportioning valve to the rear so we can adjust the rear. That way the rear doesn't lock up before the front and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of information out there. Just look up proportioning valve systems, and there'll be some settings we'll have to implement as we get closer to some testing, and just have to make sure we get this valve set correctly. So we're gonna run at least all new front lines, left and right caliper, and running to these T fittings, which then off The BRAT actually has independent brake lines to the rear calipers, and those continue all the way through. So this, let's just say this one goes to the left, this goes to the right. So we'll tap into those in our T-fitting. So we'll basically go from the master cylinder, proportioning valve, T-fitting, and then on to the rear calipers. So I'm gonna get a brake line out here, which we've got. I bought a nice OEM Tools tube bender, if you will, for brake lines. We've got a flaring toolkit, and then we've got this carbon nickel stuff from Amazon, which everybody talks about. It seems to be easy to work with, so that's nice. And deburring tool, portioning valve, metric M10x1 fittings, which is what all the Subaru stuff uses. So let's get to work. All right, I saw this online. We just take, I guess this would be like a 6-inch wide board here. Just had an extra piece laying around, and drill a hole all the way through it. And then as you pull this through, you get straight lines. So that's really cool how that works. So pretty easy way to straighten out your brake line. Right, so we got our 3/16 die on here. Put that there. And we will latch this down. Plenty of videos online on how to do all this, but we'll tighten this a little bit. We're gonna put on operation 0, which will get that flush where it needs to be. Then we'll tighten down this die. So we'll go to operation 1 for 3/16 and just go till resistance, and then we'll go operation 2 for 3/16. Just go to normal resistance, and we should have the double flare. Let's see. Very cool. I don't know if you guys can see that on there, but very cool. All right, well, here's the first line I've made. So this is gonna go from the master cylinder down around the brake booster and then up into the T-fitting on the firewall, and then we'll go to the front left and right calipers. So pretty cool. All right, so I need to make this curve right here, which just comes out of the fender well, curves up to the flexible braided steel line within that goes to the caliper, sorry. So this is in the fender well, so this will go through the fender wall, and then there's like a little metal bracket here, which is where the hard line connects to the rubber line. And it's kind of a complex bend, so I'm gonna go ahead and flare and put on the fitting for our new line, and then we'll bend it. I think that'll work out pretty good. So I'm gonna go for that real quick, and then hopefully we can get that bend, and that'll help us get started on where we wanna go from there. All right, so what I've decided to do is use the original brake distribution spot here as the mount for the rear, because this is where the rear brake lines come in. The idea is to use this T here. We'll run from the back, the rear port on the master cylinder will run down,
come over, follow this existing line here and just come up to the bottom, and then we'll bend our 2 lines to come into here as a union and make that all nice and pretty. So I think that's a pretty good plan. So let's get started on that. All right, so I just want to show you guys, I've pretty much completed the front and rear end brake lines. We use the factory BRAT rear brake lines because those go back individually to the left and right calipers in the rear. And so I just use this T-fitting here. The line comes in from the master cylinder, which is the rear port, goes to the Willwood proportioning valve, and it comes all the way over, goes to the T, and then those 2 go back to the rear calipers. And then the front port on the master cylinder goes down, comes over to this T, which then goes over to the driver's side, and then down here over to the passenger side. I've also 3D printed a couple little bracket holders, these 2 just keeping those lines spaced apart and sturdy. And we've also got one, which you can't really see in this part of the video, but down here, and one here that kind of keeps everything secure. And then I did replace the grommets on this side and each fender well. So really happy with all this. I'm going to make a bracket for this proportioning valve. It has 2 little mounting bracket holes here, which will make a bracket from there to go over to, say, probably this bracket here on the master cylinder. I do need to plug the 2 ports on the master cylinder. I think those are still M10 by 1. I'll double check that before I order them. And then I think the braking system is done. So never done this before. I enjoyed it. I did mess up a few times, as I'll show you here. Definitely a learning curve here, but I do have some left over to do the hard line for the master cylinder, clutch master cylinder, I should say. And so we're going to move on to that next.
Pedal box I want to keep. It's the factory pedal box. I want to keep the way it works. The brake master cylinder, everything, all that works great. Did have to add or remove the old gas pedal and then add the new drive-by-wire pedal, which you'll see in a future video. And then the clutch pedal, which was the thing. I originally was going to use a Gen 2 clutch cable setup for the clutch. And then I ordered one, I got it all set up, and it's one of the other videos. But I wasn't really happy with it. And I was like, I really don't want to cable. The 2004 WRX has a hydraulic slave cylinder that controls the clutch fork, and I really wanted to utilize that. And so I've come up with a way to utilize that and mount a Willwood master cylinder inside of the pedal box. And so when you press the pedal, it pushes the rod back and then engages the clutch. It's working so far. Really happy. We'll see the longevity of it. But I wanted to keep everything nice and tucked up underneath the steering column because there's not a lot of room inside the BRAT as there is, and I didn't want a lot of things hanging down or in the way. I think it came out great, and so you guys will see that here shortly. Okay, so here's what I've kind of come up with. This is a Willwood clutch master cylinder, really like the slimmer version, if you will. And the idea is that we're going to sneak this guy right in here by using this bracket that I made. And so here's the original pin for the cable, the clutch cable off of the clutch pedal. And so we're going to tap into that. So I'm going to keep this as straight as I can. And I've made this bracket as you just saw. And so it's off-centered just a little bit to get it in here. And so that guy will mount there. I'm probably going to sneak this up here a little bit further, so we'll shorten this bracket down. But that'll get everything in line. Hopefully you can see that. Kind of like that. And then we will extend this shaft here out to come out to about the center of everything. And of course we've got some adjustment on this, so if we do want to end up kind of keeping it here, we can, or if we want to move it up just a little bit. So I'll play with that as I get in here, but we're going to weld this in and make sure that all that is off center, and then we should be in good shape. Okay, so to run the remote reservoir, which is a Willwood kind of universal kit, we'll mount the reservoir in the engine bay, but this is the inlet, if you will, for the clutch fluid. This is the outlet, which we've already made the hard line for, as you saw. So we have to have a 7/16-20 inverted flare fitting. I believe that's correct. To go to a -4AN fitting, and I'm hoping that this is going to work. So that guy seems to fit there. And then we're going to use this -4AN fitting here as our fitting to rubber hose, like that. And so that'll sit in there like this, and we've got all of our clamps and everything that we'll need. So we'll have a hard line here, and then we'll have this line, which AM fitting, which is nice to kind of have like that, and go mount it up. So I printed up this little spacer to match the back of the reservoir mount because of this lip here on the BRAT firewall. So this will be able to space this out just enough to give us some clearance. And so we put this on here. I already drilled my holes using that little spacer as the guide. Then we'll bolt it through the firewall here. So this is going to be tucked down nice. Well, I meant to put the hose on first, but we'll just have to, the idea is to come up from the bottom. So that's where we're at, and we've come a long way on the BRAT. You know, she's sitting on her own suspension. She has her drivetrain in. She has new brake lines. We're gonna run fuel lines next, so I'll make a video about that, and then we can get onto the wiring. I wanted to get all the mechanicals out of the way before we run the wiring, because just don't want to mess up the wiring or anything like that. But everything's pretty much ready to go in. I do need to figure out how to use the vintage AC and how that's gonna mount up underneath the dash. It will fit. I've just got to make my own brackets and see where I want the ducting and all that to go. And then we can start moving on to hopefully maybe a first start. That's probably going to be in a couple videos, just going to be honest with you all. Probably going to be a couple months down the road, but I would like to drive this car this year. And so I appreciate you guys coming along with me and enjoying the videos and liking and commenting. It really helps a lot, and kind of boosts the morale to get out here and work on this thing when I have time. So thanks for watching again. Subscribe, like, let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next video.